you will know when all of a sudden the benefits of being a thought leader begin to accrue. The category of one, the sustainable, competitive differentiation, better client retention, easier client, business development, the higher fees, etc. Once you start to get some of those, you could probably say, okay, something's happening right. But on the other hand, I think there's some merit in saying, okay, so what are their tests? And I've come up with 10 different factors, and pardon me for rambling on right now, but I think that if you look at each of these factors, and you can say, how am I doing there? And it's not a question of give myself a grade, an A or B or C or D or F, but really the question is, okay, on each of these ones, are there some very specific things that I can do every single day, every single week, with my team, whatever it happens to be, to actually increase your score, if you will, on each of these 10 tests. And it almost, once again, becomes a bit of a to-do list of saying, okay, what can we do? Some things we can, are factual. So let me just go through the 10 tests, and then if there's any particular that you want to dive into, I'm happy to, talk more about it. One is the economic test. How much are people willing to pay you? If they're willing to pay an awful lot, that probably means that they value what you've got, which might mean you're a thought leader. The traditional media test, how many magazine or traditional media or online profiles exist about you? How often are you called to actually opine on whatever the particular topic is that's your expertise? I know I've got around 450, 500 or so media interviews and profiles under my belt, which is kind of cool. Excuse me. Somehow they found out about you, these third parties. There's a speaker author test. Do people want to have you speak on your particular area of expertise? Have you written deeply about those things? If you've got a book, is it a bestseller? Not an Amazon bestseller, but a real bestseller, right? The activity level test. How much stuff do you actually pump out every day, every week, right? If you're doing that, then it's more likely that you're an expert because you're actually thinking of it. By the way, I should say, ChatGPT is not thought leadership. ChatGPT is a system, okay, that can create stuff which is not exactly original, which is not thought leadership, etc. So the activity level test is really about your own. Related to that is the longevity test. How many years have you been doing it? It sort of reminds me, I was at a conference many years ago, and this person was a social media expert, and somebody was talking to this person who was an intelligent person, a great presenter, but to me it didn't seem like they had much experience. There was no longevity. So somebody I was with said, I'm just curious, before social media, what did you do? And the person said, well, before that, I was an Y2K expert. And they said, oh, very good. What did you do before then? Well, before then, I was I forget what it was. It was some other kind of expert, a real estate sales expert. And before that, it was a vacuum cleaner sales expert. They were selling vacuum cleaners, right? So if you end up doing all these different things, there's no longevity. If on the other hand, you've got a huge longevity in the particular area, then it's more likely. What other ones? A social follower test. How many people follow you on the various different platforms? And by the way, are they the right people? The database test. How many people do you have in your list, and how active it is? The community involvement test. How often do people tap you on the shoulder to get you involved in particular things within the community, however you define community? The fancy title test. The fancy title test is the more senior you are in a very large organization, the more likely that you might be one as well. And finally, the Google test. How do you do in Google? And it's both the scope of influence as well as the depth of your knowledge. So that one seems pretty interesting because you might think, well, if you do a lot of SEO, that might be able to help you on the Google test. Well, it can only help so much. In my particular case, I've never paid a penny for any kind of Google test. But if you actually did a search for, say, choosing a business growth speaker. It's just something that has nothing supposedly to do with me. Um, I come up on the first page of Google, and very often the very first entry after all the ads, right? So you can't manufacture that kind of thing. It's just something that, because of all those other tests, Google tries to reflect. So those are all those tests. And once again, if you give yourself a grade on all of them, you might not do as well as you think, and I wouldn't be upset. It's really more of a question of here's maybe some indicators of how you can actually do a little bit better and reap the benefits.